Prostitution in modern society. Prostitution, also known as the oldest profession in the world. Prostitution is defined as the practice of engaging in sexual activity in exchange for money as payment. This profession has been around since the beginning of human civilization. Civilization is and it often generates negative feedback when spoken of throughout the public. Most prostitutes are women and vary from the ages of 13 or older. But what do we think when we hear the word prostitution? Well, many would say whores, pimps, sex, money, or many other negative comments. Instead, what would we think if we would change the words up a bit, like sex slaves, human trafficking, kidnapping, young children? Wouldn't our thoughts change drastically when we hear those different but similar types of words? So, prostitution is illegal in many countries in the world, but is also very popular in developed countries like the US, Canada, and the United Kingdom. On average, prostitutes start around the age of 13, whether by choice or force. Most people believe that prostitution is a lifestyle and is chosen by many of those that choose to be prostitutes. But the truth is that over 100,000 children are forced to be sex slaves every year. Most of the children come from underdeveloped countries like China, India, Taiwan, South Korea, South Africa, Brazil, and India. These children are kidnapped or sold to human traffickers who later sell them to the highest bidder to developed countries like the US to act as sex slaves, or any other type of exploitation. Most of these children are brought up to be sex slaves for most, if not all of their lives, if not killed by one of their clients, pimps, or an STD that is very common in this type of work environment. Many women are not forced but choose this lifestyle, not because they need the money fast. They are usually abused women with low self-esteem and low self-worth. They have no choice but to survive off this kind of servitude. Now, one can ask, how can someone be desperate enough to be able to sell your own body for money? As we all know, money is everything in our society, and if bills don't get paid, then we can find ourselves living without a house and living on the street. So, for some prostitutes, it's better than being homeless. But there are also a number of women that choose to be prostitutes because of their sexual curiosity or because of their sexuality. And in a survey done by Science Ordic, 68% of the participants say they choose this line of work because of their sexual their sexuality. Well, it is true that many simply do it to make easy cash or to keep their drug addictions, but for the most part, many of them do not wish to keep this type of work. Some of these women have been raped by family members or close friends, as 75% of the women involved in prostitution started as children, thus causing them to have little or no self-esteem at all, making them easy targets for pimps and other sex traffickers. 65 to 95% of the women who become prostitutes were raped by a family member. The survey also showed that over 75% of these prostitutes were raped more than 16 times a year by their pimp or handlers, thus traumatizing them for life and making it even harder for them to get out of the pimp's handling and having the courage to escape this very dangerous line of work. Why are children the main prey for human traffickers? Well, primarily because they are easier targets than adults. Children are more defenseless than an older mature adult. Also because children are easily taught and showed the ways of prostitution. Children are more gullible and process events in a more simpler way. They just seem to accept that there is no life but the only life that they are living, and there isn't anything apart from that. Trauma can create serious psychological events in the child's mind making them more fearful to their handlers and destroying what little self-worth and courage they have, thus making it almost impossible to escape the hands of this dreadful lifestyle of being a sex slave. According to the Huffington Post, prostitution in the United States is one of the most unregulated, and extremely lucrative industries there is. For example, Atlanta's sex trade was worth a whopping $2,900 million in 2007 alone. The Post also mentioned that the industry is operated by family members and that the business is passed down to further generations to continue this very lucrative business. The industry is similar to a mafia or a cartel, moving and shipping illegal contraband across international borders to countries where the women and children are sold to the highest bidders. The human traffickers that do this implement fear and total control over these victims, and who are re-educated in believing that the only thing they know how to do is prostitution. They exert total power with these people, telling them when to eat, when to sleep, and when to do other common household things. Many of them work and sell their bodies for very long hours at a period of time throughout the day. Many of these people are kidnapped or sold as former slaves from their former countries, as been mentioned earlier. In the online article, The Atlantic, it mentions the orphanage in the countries fake the papers of orphans and sell them to human traffickers on the black market as sex slaves. Who are the biggest payers in this industry? Well, according to the Huffington Post, it says that law enforcement are the biggest ones that buy. It's kind of ironic that people who are supposed to prevent the exploitation of women are the main consumers of this illegal industry. So what can be done to fight prostitution? Well, throughout the state of Georgia, officials are increasing how law enforcement deal with these cases. Also, they have promoted more public awareness that the fact that this issue does exist, and also giving out examples of what to do, what to look out for to help prevent further exploitation of children and of adult women alike. The United States has implemented several federal anti-trafficking efforts, like the 2013 Federal Strategic Action Plan for victims of human trafficking, were made to increase collaboration between governmental agencies to combat human trafficking throughout the borders. The Department of Homeland Security has also implemented tactics by helping fight human smugglers and to catch them in the act of smuggling humans across the borders on purpose of becoming sex slaves. The Justice Department has also implemented many laws to help protect these victims of such crime. They also hold penalties for those who are caught against doing these crimes, and also has made a task force to help rescue the children who have been kidnapped by these human traffickers. In conclusion, prostitution can be optional or forced. Whether we want to or not, it's not a simple fact that this is an issue that's going on around us. We also turn a blind eye to the fact that prostitution and human trafficking affects everyone, directly or indirectly. The reality is that children and adults are forced to be sex slaves for the greed and pleasure of others, and that people are willing to make other people suffer and die to their own benefit of becoming richer.